Hello, everyone. It is Tia here with
I'm Kim.
for another episode of Masks Off. So today we're excited to talk about the next, the journey that we go on and how it has those valleys and peaks. And before we get into that, we're going to read our quote. It's from Jill Bolte Taylor, who is amazing. If you haven't read or watched her TED Talk, highly recommend. To experience peace does not mean that your life is always blissful. It means that you are capable of tapping into a blissful state of mind amidst the normal chaos of a hectic life.
I
Sounds
love that.
so easy and not always easy accessible, but I love it too because it's true. It's like, what's our inner state when the chaos is going on around us? So we can choose to join the chaos, or we can choose to find that blissful state. When it comes back to lack versus abundance, so many wisdom teachings. But we thought that quote would be kind of fun as we climb up the mountain and we're up on that valley top. We're in that blissful state. So Kim, what did you want to share about being up on the top of the mountain and finding that blissful state, even if there's chaos going on around us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have to say it's just not that simple, right?
No,
It's
never.
easier said than done because, and we've talked so many times with our mountain analogies, how we do go through peaks and valleys. And so for a while, I was definitely in a valley. And while I was in the valley, I could not apply this quote. Yeah, I couldn't, I was getting triggered left and right. I was a basket case. I was just, my circumstances, my environment was just getting me in a muck. I was in the marsh, right?
Yes.
I was in this
Yes.
stinky swamp for a while. But all the while that I was there, I still had my tools. I
Mm-hmm.
still had the learnings. I still had the wisdom. I still applied what I know and did the best that I could do while I was in that marsh. And little by little, things started to slow down. Like I said, there was a lot of different circumstances that had expiration dates. I talked about that in one of the previous
Right.
episodes. And of course, I don't want to be insensitive to say about my dad and my uncle having expiration dates, and they still are alive. So I still am taking care of them. But just like my daughter moving into her apartment and the whole chaos, right? Because the quote
Right.
says, amidst the normal chaos of a hectic life. So there was that chaos of moving her to Boston. Now that one's kind of settled. There were some other bigger things that were on my plate that are now have come to a completion. But I have in the last few weeks implementing, and then this you'll appreciate because it goes with our mind, body, spirit BYB course and what we do in our Masks Off Facebook community, is that I have really been spending more time nurturing the mind, the body, and the spirit.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
I'm on
that.
a new program. It's called a New Quest. It's from Mind Valley.
Okay. Which one?
I can't pronounce his last name, but it's, well, Eric something, and it's Wild Fit.
I've heard several people mentioning that to me recently.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm learning all kinds of things about eating. I'm really learning the psychology and how to eat differently. So, just in this, let's see, last week I was drinking a lot more water. So, nourishing my body more with water. This week already, and it's only 2 days in, but I can't tell you how many fruits and vegetables that I have had in the last 2 days. I'm like hoping I can make it through this podcast without having to need to run to the bathroom because I've had so many fruits and vegetables. It's crazy. But, just that plus the exercise, it's warmer out. So I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
out in nature more. I'm
Right.
doing my workouts outside. I'm riding my bike, which that
Mm.
nourishes my spirit because it makes me feel like a kid again. So as I'm doing all these things to nourish my body and then my mind and my spirit, I'm feeling more energized, more centered, and more whole, right? And this is what you and I have talked about in so many podcasts. Again, easier said than done. Sometimes we just get stuck,
Right.
and life is happening, and life is chaotic and it's hectic, and sometimes you just do what you have to do.
Sometimes you just have to survive moment by moment.
You just survive. And then, it's hard to implement all of this wisdom and all these teachings. But it's still good to have it there, right? Like I said, even still, I knew what the tools were. It's good to still have the backpack.
Yes.
With your tools in it.
Yep.
Because as soon as you start to be able to come up and breathe a little bit from whatever's going on, you can take the tool out of your backpack and then start getting that momentum again. So now that I'm feeling more centered, more nourished, I have more energy. Now I feel like, okay, I can start climbing the mountain again. Right? Well, there's two things. I feel like I kind of am on one peak of a mountain. And as you were saying, and I'll let you talk about that some more, having just that broader perspective, I can see everything so much clearly now, right? When you're standing at the top of a peak, you can just see for miles and miles.
Exactly.
And I see so clearly now, whereas before when I was in that awful place, I couldn't see clearly. So that's one thing, if you want to talk about that. And then the other thing is I just have this energy now I can climb, I can work on myself, I can grow, I can do whatever. I have more energy to grow and to evolve, because I'm on my way up now. Doesn't mean I'm going to stay there, because life is peaks and valleys. So I want to just kind of reiterate that. It just means that while I'm on a mountaintop, I could take a deep breath, like, just enjoy the scenery. I'm on a mountaintop.
Love it.
It looks so pretty from up
so
here.
Peaceful up there.
It's so peaceful. I'm feeling good, but it doesn't mean that I won't go down in a valley and then have to come back up and climb another mountain.
Exactly, because it's a mountain range, right? Life is filled when we look at, because we like to refer to nature a lot in our analogies and in the teachings, because really nature teaches us.
Absolutely.
Nature has all the wisdom. And so when we get stuck, if we can just look at nature and, hey, how does nature handle this? What's that going on? That you look at the earth is not just one big flat meadow. It's hilly and mountains and depths of the ocean and all sorts of different terrain, just like our life. And so being at the top of the mountain right now, there's another mountain coming up ahead. So you got to go down to come back up, right? We rarely can just take that airplane and from mountaintop to mountaintop. And to be honest, when we do that, we're bypassing.
Yes.
And, then we could talk about, and I fly on airplanes, so I own my part, but it's super detrimental to the environment.
Yeah.
Airplane travel. So when we take an airplane from mountaintop to mountaintop, it's detrimental to ourselves because we're bypassing and not taking those lessons.
Yeah.
So a couple things, the wide perspective, when you were talking, we had talked about before we hit record, and you just kind of summed it up so beautifully. One thing that came to mind is when you're up on that top of that mountain where it is blissful and peaceful and you can see for hundreds of miles on a clear day. What you also can see, the vision that came into my head is you can also see the beauty and you can see the chaos below you. And the image that came to mind was stampeding buffalo. So the buffalo stampede. And so you were in the middle of a buffalo stampede earlier that you're referring to. So the buffaloes are, life is throwing you all these things, dirt's flying in your face. You can't see because there's so much dust. And you're just in that survival, dodging each buffalo as it comes around you. But when you're up on that mountaintop, you're still having to navigate your dad and your uncle and other things of life. But you're looking at it from this perspective of, oh, I got 4 phone calls about my dad and 3 about my uncle today. There's all those little buffalo. That chaos is still going on, but you're not getting trapped under those hooves. You're not getting trapped in the dust. You're able to go into the chaos with clarity and then come right back up to the mountaintop. So we see that wider view of realizing I can choose to return to this blissful place. So it doesn't mean that there's not the chaos, the phone calls and the navigating and
Oh, I'm
doing all
still getting
that.
them.
And there may be one that throws you off kilter, but then you're able right now with where you're at, nourishing your body, mind, and spirit, taking really good care of yourself. Because when do we most often need that? When we're in the chaos, and then we think we
Yes.
can't do it, but that's actually when we most need to make time for it. So it's this dance, it's not, you just stay up there like a monk who can live up on a mountaintop for their whole lives.
Yeah.
We don't
It's
have that
not that.
option. And honestly, I don't think I would like that option in reality. But the one question I had for you was, so there's the bliss, finding that blissful state in the chaos. And you were talking about how when you were in the middle of the stampeding bison, you still had your backpack. You still were, every now and then grabbing out a tool. And I think I know the answer to this, but I just, for our listeners, want to ask, were you able to still, even when you were in the thick of the muck of the stampede and the overwhelm that you were experiencing, were you still able to find blissful moments here and there?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, there were some still here and there, not as many.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say again, the reason, and you just highlighted it and illustrated it for me. I think really the thing that was different for me was my mindset.
Totally.
It was my mindset. I was, and we said we're going to talk about struggle versus suffering. I was causing my own suffering because those situations and events are still taking place.
Correct.
Most of them. The only one that really is kind of settled is my daughter moved into her apartment. But, I still do have a lot going on with my dad. He's still not good with the dementia. He's getting worse.
I was going to say, he's not going to get better. It's going to be more challenging.
It's getting more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle's situation is more challenging. I mean, he's a little bit steady. The construction work is still not done. We still have like 3 weeks to go. It's, and just everyday stuff too is still happening. There's still the challenges with, the business, and it's just the to-do list. It's so what is different is my mindset, because I have been making conscious choices lately that, you know what, I'm going to do this Wild Fit program. I'm going to put my food first. I'm going to put drinking water first. I'm going to put exercise first, being in nature first. I'm going to take care of myself. And as I'm taking care of myself, I'm better able, as you said, to handle those moments, those stressful situations. I can take them with more grace, with more ease. I can flow with it more.
Yeah.
Because I'm taking care of myself and I'm setting boundaries. If there's a call or there's something, or I'm just saying that's going to either take place later in the day after I've taken care of myself, or it'll just have to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, obviously, if you get a call that can't wait, you meet it then too.
Exactly.
But when you have the ability to choose, it's like,
yes,
do I want to deal with this right now? Or do I need to go for a bike ride first? And then I'm going to be able to handle it with more compassion, with more presence, with more awareness, with more bliss, even if it's chaotic.
Right. And that's a good point that you're making, because if I'm setting the boundaries and I'm taking care of myself all along, and I'm putting I'm prioritizing my self-care, that when I get those crisis calls or those crisis moments, I will be more apt to handle them in a better way than if I'm drained and depleted and stressed out to the max.
Exactly. And that's why when we think we don't have time, there goes the printer. When we think we don't have time to take care of ourselves is when we have to make sure we are. And recognizing that taking care of ourselves doesn't have to be an hour-long thing. It can be as simple as, I'm going to go outside for 3 minutes and sit down and just listen to the birds. I'm going to go outside and just go for the walk for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be humongous chunks. Because
You
when we're
can
in that huge
sprinkle.
chaos,
Yeah,
sometimes we don't have that.
100% agreed. And I don't do that either. It's not like I'm taking a whole day and going to the spa. What I'm trying to do, and what I can say for listeners, is to sprinkle it throughout the day.
Yes.
That's what I'm doing, is sprinkling self-care throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I start in the morning with, 16 ounces of water. I'm just having my fruit, and then I go and do something, and then I'll come back in between and I'll try to do my stretches in between. Like I'll have a couple calls and then I'm like, all right, I need to move my body. So I'll go do my stretches and then I'll come back and do some more. Now, granted, I have the ability to do my work from home, so that makes a difference. But even in an office, you still can get some breaks, even if it's getting up and walking. I'll use the example of the printer or something, walking and doing a couple of stretches, or going to the ladies' room and just taking 5 deep breaths. I mean, literally, I just throughout the day, I'm just trying to breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly 5 times. And it takes like less than a minute.
Exactly. And I think the beauty of doing it that way, because that's how I do my self-care as well. It's just naturally how it has evolved. It doesn't mean I don't take bigger moments when I have the ability, or I schedule a massage or something like that. But those are the things that they're nice, but not necessary. What's necessary for me are those sprinklings throughout the day, because then it's accessible. If I miss doing one, I know I'm going to have more time later to add in another 5 minutes, or something's going to come. Like I may have that crisis phone call or email or something. It's like, okay, I was going to go outside, take a few breaths. I want to handle this now. And I'll get to that later, because I know I'm going to make more time for it later. And it doesn't become overwhelming or part of a to-do list. It's a way of living.
Yes.
Because I think oftentimes we think of it as to do. I have to do self-care. I should. I need to. Let me schedule it in. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Which can be helpful when you get started.
Yeah.
But recognizing it doesn't have to be this big thing that looks like self-care from the outside.
Yeah.
It's what do you need right now in this moment to help you? You're on that mountaintop, finding that blissful state. So when you go down, whether you tumble right down into the valley because of something happening and you just lose your kilter, knowing that you have this inner filled up place that you can access helps you come back up for air again. Start to climb back out of the stampede or whatever it is that's showing up.
I love that. And I'll actually even use another example from this Wild Fit program that I can make a comparison to. So Eric was talking about how to navigate staying healthy when you're traveling, because when you fly, you get so dehydrated.
Correct.
So he talked about, and he travels all the time. He travels like more than half the year. He's always traveling time zones because he goes around the world and he speaks and so on and so forth. So he's always traveling. So what he does to keep himself from crashing from jet lag and things like that, when he knows he has a trip coming up, 3 days before the trip, he will start to hydrate like crazy, like even more than he normally drinks.
Interesting.
So and it's just like runners will front load with carbs so that they can last the whole entire marathon. So he will like front load with all this water to really hydrate his cells, so that when he gets on the plane, when planes naturally dehydrate you, and then he'll continue to sip water throughout the flight, that he is not being depleted of and becoming hydrated, because he explains that once you are dehydrated, it's too late. So you have to really prepare yourself. So we're saying the same thing, like in terms of a hectic life, or you have the normal hectic life, the normal chaos, but when you have the big stuff, right? If you're doing these little things and putting the drops in the bucket all along, that when the big stuff comes along, not that it won't be difficult, not that it won't drain you of all your energy. I mean, it can even be like, if you have a toddler, a screaming toddler that's sick or colicky, or like anything that just drains you, if you're filling your bucket, that when those situations come along, it's going to help you to be better prepared and sustain those.
Exactly. And I think it's really great you brought up like the toddler or this colicky baby, because what's the advice you always got when you were pregnant? Sleep now, take care of yourself now.
Yeah.
And
When
how
they're
many of us
sleeping, you
actually
sleep.
took that
I know. And
advice?
yeah,
You know,
I,
but it's true, because those, an infant comes into your world, a toddler.
yeah,
The reality is you don't have a lot of time for yourself unless you live in a situation that has that as an option, but the vast majority of people don't.
I know.
And so if we can learn and teach our children that, hey, you can take 5 minutes for yourself,
Yeah.
you can take 1 minute for yourself. Even I think back, because both of my girls were colicky at the same time for many months.
That's insane. That's
And it was,
insane.
it's a blur. I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
But knowing, for whatever reason, I knew I couldn't change it. So I was in acceptance of it, I think, for the most part. Thank goodness I had that piece of me that just
Yeah.
naturally knew that. But I think it's just like, okay, they're crying, they're screaming, they're wanting you, they're pulling you in all these different directions. And it goes back to that quote at the beginning. How can you find that blissful state when your toddler's pulling you one direction, the phone is ringing, you're getting an email, you have a crying baby on your hip? Can you find that blissful space? Even if it's for 2 seconds, 1 second.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mean you're going to sit up on the top of that mountain in that blissful state for the whole time. And just like when you were navigating and in that valley, you still were able to find a moment of bliss every now and then. Because then when you come up out of it and in that blissful state, you refill that cup a little more.
Yeah,
So you
totally.
can catch those little moments. And it's a
Yeah.
practice. It's not
It
easy.
is a practice. It is. And I'm almost feeling like the way you're saying, I'm almost feeling like you're creating those neural pathways is what it really is.
Yes.
It's creating those neural pathways. So even if it's
100%.
just like one moment of little bliss here and then and you catch yourself in another one, you're building these neural pathways, you're making grooves so that your mind then will remember that.
Exactly. And I love that you brought up that brain piece too, because this is science.
Yeah.
It is. We can rewire our brain. And so, there's so much talk recently, with Gabor Mate's wisdom of trauma and all. I'm just really into understanding more trauma lately. And so realizing your method of getting stuck in the chaos, for some people, that may feel normal and that feels safe because that's all you knew. That's what you grew up with. That was your experience. And now you can choose to start to add in those little nourishing, blissful, to rewire your brain and integrate the comfort zone of chaos. Even if you don't like it, it's still comfortable.
Right.
For so many people. And so having that compassion, like so oftentimes I'll hear from clients, what's wrong with me? Why can't I? Why this? Why that? And when we can understand the nervous system, the brain, and all the physiological aspects with this as well, I think helps people transcend that a little differently, because it's like, oh, there's a reason nature created this type of response in our nervous system and our brain and all of that, because it was to survive at a time. Survival. And that's if all you grew up with was chaos around you, how would you know what it's like not to have chaos and to find that blissful mountaintop? So it's those neural pathways.
Yeah, it's the neural pathways for sure. So yeah, I just totally believe in that. So I hope this was helpful for some people listening. It was really great to come on and share about that, be able to have that wider perspective, that wider view for sure. More space. I feel more spacious and as a result, like I can feel more joy, more space, more freedom. And this is what you and I both do in our work, is to help clients to have more freedom, to have more joy, more authenticity, more abundance, like all of those things that are our birthright. They are our birthright. And like you just said a minute ago, many of us have grown up where things are just hectic and chaos all the time and don't even know that these things are possible for us. Right. They are our birthright, people. To be joyful, to be abundant. That's how we came into the world. When we came in, that we came in expecting to have those things.
Right. Right. And then life gets in the way.
Yes.
But it's part of the journey, and it's part of the unfolding and the returning. And
absolutely,
it's a beautiful process that is painful and difficult and challenging, yet beautiful all the same. So
yeah, the hero's journey for
that's
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh.
So this feels like a good place to complete and stop. Although, do you want to mention real quick about our Instagram?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. So we're trying to be more active on Instagram. Kim has been doing some amazing videos. She's really taken charge of the Instagram account, and I want to give her lots of kudos for that because it's
Thank you.
amazing.
I'm just trying to learn something new.
I love, but they're outside your comfort zone.
Totally.
I love it. So we, she's been posting videos and whatnot. I pop on every now and then, but really I want to give Kim all the credit on this one. So please take some time, just follow us on Instagram. It's at Masks Off Community. You can find us on Instagram, and we'd appreciate any follows, and we'd love to hear more through DMs or anything on there as well. If there's any topics you want us to talk about, any questions you have, just send us a message on Instagram, and we would love to hear from you and support you on your journey walking up and down those mountaintops.
Totally. Yep. Perfect closing. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your support. We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care. Bye.